Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Think Great Experience. I'm very excited because we're joined by Marques Ogden, former NFL player, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, executive coach, and author. And I just finished your book, Sleepless Nights, Marques. Absolutely phenomenal. Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks a lot, Erik. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to chatting with you for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's great that you wrote this book because I feel like sleepless nights, a lot of people have had sleepless nights over the last 2 years with the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
And you were so open, so honest, so transparent, not just with all the great things that you've had experience in your life, but some of the lower times in your life too. You were so vulnerable in there that I felt it really gives people hope. And just wanted to ask you your motives for writing this book. What were you thinking when you made this decision?
So I wanted to write the book to kind of highlight what I'd gone through in my life, but also I wanted to kind of share the ups, the downs, the peaks, the valleys, the highs, the lows, because I feel a lot of people who are successful, well, not a lot, I feel a good amount of people who are successful don't talk about the lows a lot of times, or they like to forget the lows because they're embarrassed or ashamed of it. And the problem with that is more people in our society are going through the lows or the struggling times. And
Right.
I feel people who are successful share that they went through hard times, low times. It'll really get people's morale inspired and boosted because they're going to think, okay, well, if Mr. X had trouble, Miss Y had trouble, and now here they are doing great things today, maybe I could do the exact same thing. So it was really about trying to help people understand that just because you have lows in your life, right, Erik, it doesn't mean that you can't get back to the highs.
I love that. I love that. No wonder you're a great keynote speaker because you're inspiring people. Let me ask you this, and I know mindset is very important to you, right? Being in that right mindset. And I think there's people listening right now that are on the verge of some breakthroughs, on the verge of greatness, but they have to wait a little bit. You got to tell me what it was like as you're waiting to hear your name called in the NFL draft. What was that experience like for you? What were some lessons learned from that moment in time?
Well, waiting for that phone call for your name to come across the screen ESPN, it's really about controlling your mental focus and really focusing on what you can handle as far as, you can't make a team call you and say, we're drafting you now. That'd be awesome, but it's not the way the cards work. And it's just like in life, you can't, have a client that you're trying to get as a client or a prospective client and then have them, or you can wave a magic wand or cut on a light and say, hey, Mr. X, Mrs. Y, hire me today. It doesn't work like that. So the NFL draft process taught me a lot about patience, a lot about fortitude, but most importantly, Erik, it taught me about, how to have and control, better yet, my mental focus, how to have, my mindset and have things that I could, make happen. Understood that I couldn't make this happen. I could make a lot of things happen in my life, working out, going to bowl games, doing well, having good, exams, with teams and doing good on my Wonderlink. I could control that, but I couldn't control the team actually saying, okay, Marques, we see enough in you of either proven product and or of potential to make you our draft pick. So I couldn't control that. So that's what that process taught me, how to be able to get through life, really, because my first 2.5 years in the speaking business, I didn't get one paid speaking job.
I understand what that's like. You do a lot of what they call pro bonos, right? All right, I'll come and speak. I'll help out. Absolutely. I think that mindset is so important. And then you get into the NFL, you're with the Jaguars, you're around great people. But something that you mentioned in your book is that they sent you to a symposium and you had some amazing lessons for that. Can you just share, maybe a couple takeaways from this symposium? And this was for, if I'm not mistaken, this was for rookies, right?
Correct. It was for all drafted rookies in the 2003 draft class. So, my draft class, we had Byron Leftwich was my teammate, Carson Palmer was my draft class, Troy Polamalu, Dan Copeland, who played for the Patriots. We had a really strong draft class of players that came out of my draft class. And so we all went to the symposium in Florida. I think it was Hollywood, Florida, for it was like 4 or 5 days to learn about, different things you could do and how to handle money and how to handle family wanting things from you and your friends. And the biggest takeaway that I took from there is that football was going to be very short window. Now, of course, you have guys like Tom Brady, who just now unretired, coming back for his 23rd year.
Yeah, he did.
That's almost unheard of. But most of our lifespans, like 1, 2, 3, maybe if we're lucky, 5, 6 years. And even some of the greats, I think I look at people like Eddie George played 8 years. Barry Sanders, I think, played 10 years. My brother 12. But even a lot of the greats, right? Played that 8 to 12 year mark. So you think you come into the league at 21 or 22, you're coming out at like between the age of 32 to 34 if you're one of the greats. If you're not, you're probably coming out like around 25, 26. And you have so much more life to live. So what I learned at the symposium was football was short term. And the fact that you need to get all you can while you're in that window, that's exactly what I took away from the symposium.
I think that's huge. I think that the fact that they send kind of the onboarding program is to get you educated into, what to expect and what to avoid too, because there is that short window. Now, one of the things that you mentioned when playing, and this was consistent through your entire book, is how important it was for you to be part of a team. And I'm sure that you're sharing that as a speaker, because I've listened to some of your videos and you're a powerful speaker. What does it mean to you to be part of a team? Because you shared a little bit about, you were, even though you're 6'6" right now, you were bullied as a kid.
Sure. Yeah. And I dealt with a lot of people because I was a large kid and I didn't play football until my freshman year of high school. So grade school was hard. I wasn't like on like the most popular clothes or things like that. So I dealt with a lot of bullying when I was a young child. And as I got bigger and got into football and found team and found camaraderie, then life got a lot more enjoyable, a lot more fun. And I feel that's what a lot of guys and girls miss when they retire from professional sports. Yes, of course, you miss the money, but, and I think that's why Tom Brady came back. I mean, he doesn't need the money. I mean, he's got more than enough. He's building now that super generational wealth. But, I can really sympathize, and let me go back. I can empathize, not sympathize. I can empathize with Tom because I remember when I was out of the NFL, I wanted to come back because I wanted to be around my teammates and the locker room and the guys and all the fun talk. And it's like you had a sense of purpose. You had a sense of direction. And that's what a team does. And I feel in corporate America, that's why businesses love hiring inspirational, self-starting athletes. Now, if you're an athlete that has an ego, or you think that you're better than everybody else, then a company doesn't need you because they don't need that negative toxicity in their culture. Right. But if you're a driven athlete and you inspire people and you really touch people, then I feel that's why so many businesses like hiring athletes, because we're self-starting. We know the importance of being part of a team. And if you have the right mentality to do the work and take care of things for the team, then the business is successful. So again, for me, team is everything, because I don't care how great you are in your job. Nobody can do anything without a great team. It's just not possible.
Right. That's right. I think it's missing in so many businesses. And like you, I came from a team. I was in the Marine Corps. And when I got out, I transitioned out. You miss that camaraderie. You miss that brotherhood, if you will. And then so when I get around a Marine now, or anybody who served for that matter, you start to feel that energy again. Do you feel that when you're around other, former NFL players or current NFL players? Can you feel that camaraderie again?
Oh, of course, because that's what it is. Like that part of you as an athlete, especially if you were lucky enough and fortunate to play at a professional level, it never dies, because You are, and that's why the NFL has done a really great job with like NFL alumni groups. Like every team has an NFL alumni group. Then you have NFL PA former players, NFL alumni. You have different chapters of like the legends and all these great things. And it's trying to really recreate for us the locker room. So we'll do like things like Top Golf, or we'll have like little like, you know, get-togethers to go watch a basketball game or a football game, or go get some food together, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They're trying and doing a really nice job of trying to recreate that locker room atmosphere. And I feel when that locker room atmosphere is at its height, that's when guys, especially I can speak from the NFL perspective, they feel a sense of purpose. Even though they're not playing football, it's like you get reacclimated to being accountable to yourself, and then being responsible to your guys that are in your alumni groups. And you're hoping that that gives the players another, it kind of reignites their passion to find something to do in life and be successful at outside of the game. That could be coaching, that could be starting a business, whatever the case may be. They're trying to reignite that fire by recreating the locker room atmosphere.
I like that, because then you feel like you're part of that again, you know?
Correct.
Well, let me ask you this. I know that in the military, when people transition out of the military, they may have gone to combat war, they may have been on deployment away from their families, and yet this transition to a new life can be really tough. What was the transition like for you out of the NFL? Because there you are kind of in this bubble for years, and now you're transitioning out. What was your mindset like? What was your thought process like going through that transition?
Oh, the transition was absolutely scary. It was hard to deal with. Again, when you lose the locker room, when you lose your teammates, when you lose the ability to go to the facility and, you know, go to your locker and go to the meeting rooms and go to the practice field, it makes it really tough because you don't really know what that next move is. Now, if you're lucky enough to retire and have a plan of action, like Drew Brees retired, went right into broadcasting, great, and that's awesome. But that's not a lot of guys. That's very few guys who have that next phase figured out. So a lot of times guys are trying to transition, but they haven't transformed. And I tell my clients, I do a lot of speaking on this topic. If you don't transform before you transition, and I have different processes of how you transform depending upon what you want to do. If you can't transform before you transition, you're finished.
I love that, because when I was in the Marines, they actually call it a transformation. They're transforming people because they know you're going to transition at some point. At some point, everybody takes the uniform off for the last time, or the jersey. You know, it's finished. And people are transitioning right now out of 2 years of the pandemic. And I feel that transition phases can be some of the hardest. Now, you actually started Kayden Premier Enterprises. So at 27, you start your own construction company, and you had some initial success that was phenomenal. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit on, here's the entrepreneurial side of you. You start a business, but then it took a turn.
Yeah, so Kayden started in 2008. And by the time we got to 2012, the beginning of the year, the end of 2011, we were the largest African-American subcontractor in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. We crushed all types of site work and earthwork and utilities and cement erosion control and concrete type work. And we had a lot of success, and we were great at marketing, sales, operations. We had a good finance process set up for the business. We were bondable. We were doing great. But unfortunately, as the company grew, my ego grew at the same time. And as a result of that ego growing and not being able to control it, I ended up losing a lot of my best people. I started to make some bad decisions on projects. I started to trust people that I shouldn't have. And I really felt that I was indestructible and I didn't handle success well. And I have a saying, if you don't handle success, success will handle you. And
Ooh.
that's what it did. I ended up going bankrupt in 2013, and I had to move to Raleigh, North Carolina after a multi-million-dollar construction business, after an NFL career. I moved to Raleigh and I only had left to my name $400. And I was trying to restart and rebrand my life all over again after that.
Wow. I mean, to put it in perspective, there was a 90-day period where you lost or saw go away about $2 million.
That is correct.
And I don't think most people can ever relate to losing that much money in a short period of time, even though maybe they've lost some money or lost some opportunities. What helped you to get through that? How did you refine your mindset to get back in the hunt again?
So basically, when I moved to Raleigh, I was working at Merrill Lynch for a short time. I got fired from that job, all my fault. Got hired to a construction company the next day, was fired from that job 5 days later. They shut down the sales store to the operation of the masonry business, and I'm out of a job. And I started coaching kids football as an entrepreneur, small, really small business owner, just solopreneur. Then I took a job as a custodian because I needed to make extra money because a lot of my football kids were now going into football season. So the trainings got less and less. And the custodian job, I tell everyone, it was the best thing that happened to me because I needed the money to live and survive. But without that job, I don't look at my life and realize that there was no accountability, no responsibility, and that if I didn't make a change, I was going to literally be in that position on that curve for the rest of my life. And the spoiled milk moment where somebody's trash and rotten meat and nasty protruding garbage, when that got all over me, that was my wake-up call. That was my rock bottom moment of clarity I was so badly missing. And I needed that because without that, I don't know if I would have woken up, but more horribly, if I hadn't woken up, would it have been, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later? I mean, you never know, right? You just never know. So literally, that's what got my mindset reignited, that if I don't make a change, I'm going to be here the rest of my life. And that's when I started the speaking business, did a lot of freebie jobs for 2.5 years,
Sure.
Got my first paid job in April of 2016, and I haven't looked back since.
So awesome. How did you know it was time to become a speaker? You've been through all of this. What made you enter that process of stepping into that role? What inspires you the most to get up there and share your story?
Well, I started speaking to help former athletes, of course, focusing with NFL athletes, not end up going bankrupt like I did. Then as I started to work with athletes, different type of speaking events for the NFL, NFL Trust, I saw that not just athletes have problems with finances or making decisions. And then I really realized that my business highs and lows could really relate to literally hundreds of millions of people in our country, and then billions around the world. And so that's when I got into trying to do more corporate, more business type speaking, because I stopped focusing just on the football part of my life. I focused on this almost 6 years of being a CEO, building a business, learning how to operate, hiring the right people, doing all these things. And then unfortunately, my ego and my bravado and my very cynical, self-centered attitude got me in a really bad spot.
I think ego knocks a lot of people down. I think they think it's a good thing, but at the end of the day, it really holds them back tremendously.
Correct. Ego, everybody has an ego. So you're not going to be able to remove the ego from your disposition or from your DNA. It's like you just need to control your ego, be confident in who you are, but don't be cocky, don't be arrogant, don't feel you're the best thing walking, and don't feel that you can't learn anything. The minute you think you can't learn something is when you're really going to put yourself in a position, I feel, of complete failure.
You know, it's interesting. You've had some highs and some lows, and through it all, you tap into the power of family a lot. I notice that you talk about your father, your mother, your brother. I love that you refer to yourself as the little brother and you're 6'6", but I guess when your brother is 6'9" and older, I guess he is the big brother. But you also talk about the impact that Bonnie had through all of this. How important is it to be able to count on your family through these tough times?
So it's everything. Like if you cannot count on people, right? Or you cannot get them to understand, the importance of what you're doing, then I feel that, you're not going to reach full potential. It's just not going to happen. And
That's right.
you need that family support in order to get where you want to go. And if you don't have that, Erik, I was talking to a client of mine about this the other day. If you don't have that support, you're done. You're just finished. So, having support is everything.
I mean, your family is the ultimate team.
Oh yeah, family's everything. Because
yeah,
I was talking with my clients about this morning. Like he said, he and his wife and his daughter's now, he is in her mid-20s. They get up and he does, his stuff. He does his, his meditation, his Bible reading, and then he said he and his wife and his daughter, they have their morning power talks. They talk about the day, what's going on, what they're focusing on. As a result of that, it allows him to get more focused, in that regard. You know what I mean?
That's so powerful. You got to have your priorities.
You have to have what I call the ability to get your ki in line. And ki is a Japanese phrase of just your life energy. And if your life energy is free flowing through you, you can harness greatness and harness innovation and great strategies and great processes. If your ki is blocked, then you're going to harness negative energy, feel unlucky, and feel that everything you're doing is not enough.
I'm going to tell you one thing that's so inspirational about you. I'm going to use your word, your ki, right? Your ki is so strong that unless you shared your challenges, nobody would ever know you had any. You come across so confident, so powerful that people will want to follow you. And I got to say, as I know we don't have a lot of time left, but can you tell us about your business now? When people are listening, go, I got to bring Marques in. Tell us a little bit more about your business and what you deliver for organizations.
So what I do is I speak on a multitude of topics, right, Erik? It could be leadership, it could be marketing and sales, it could be diversity and inclusion, it could be, corporate culture enhancement. And I really focus on bringing my story, right, plus some sort of challenge, get the audience out of their comfort zone. And then after I challenge the audience, follow that up with action steps to get them where they want to go. And I feel that's something that I really try to work on and harness, because if you don't do that, I feel you're not going to reach your full potential. That's just my personal, how I believe.
And you've gone from speaking at, pro bonos at some small organizations to now Fortune 500 companies.
Correct. I've now worked for 37 Fortune 500 companies in the last 6 years. Of the 37, 13 are Fortune 100. We just got hired last week by Nestle, which is the largest food and beverage company in the world. They were founded in 1866 in Switzerland, and we're doing a talk for them next month for their leadership team. So they are now our 13th Fortune, Fortune 100 client.
So you still have 87 more to go. I mean, there's a lot more out there for you.
Oh yeah, we're always making moves. Always making moves in that regard. Always.
Well, let me ask you this. I know a lot of people listening right now might be thinking, I can take some steps toward greatness. If you could kind of sum up, what is some advice for somebody who may have had a tough go at it, even through the pandemic, or maybe they lost somebody, or maybe they lost their business? What would be some words of wisdom as we kind of bring it all together here for somebody listening to just move in the right direction toward greatness in their own life?
So what I would challenge people to do is think about their 3 biggest strengths. Okay. What are 3 things they do well? And once they figure out what those are, Erik, reverse engineer backwards to get where you need to go. And I feel that's something that a lot of people don't do very well. They don't think about what they do. And what happens is if you don't think about what you do well, then you're like, oh, what am I going to do? And I think what happens is society programs us to always think about what we don't do well first.
That's right.
And then what we do well, I say, well, don't bring me that because then you've got my mind frame in a negative mindset. Tell me what I do well. Then let me build off what I don't do well at that point.
I think you're right. I think even in businesses, we see leaders that talk to their team members when something went wrong. And so they start to reinforce that I'm going to speak to you, but it's going to be about your weaknesses, about things that aren't good, when they could be doing a little praising too. I think talking about your strengths is vital. And people need to look at that more now than ever, with the pandemic causing a lot of complacency and shifting the way people think about themselves and their own level of greatness. So I love that. Focus on your 3 strengths and then reverse engineer. That's brilliant. So I know you've inspired people today. You've inspired me. If people want to find out more about you, what you're doing, how to bring you into their organization, how can they find you? How can they reach out to you, Marques?
Yeah, they can go to our website, www.marques, MARQUES, Ogden, OGDEN.com. And they can connect with us and they can really, have a chance to connect with us, find out more, and, just kind of see how we can help them in their journey. We love to connect with them and have a free and very just open dialogue conversation. All consultations, Erik, are free. I don't even charge people for that because they don't know me. And if you don't know me, how are you going to charge? How am I going to charge? I just think that makes no sense.
Right.
So
I agree with you on that.
Little consultation call to see a little bit more about us and if we're a good fit to possibly work together or not.
I think that's awesome. And I'm confident you're going to get some calls reaching out. I just wanted to thank you because I know you have a packed schedule today. So I wanted to thank you for carving out some time to be on the Think Great experience and help make an impact in people's lives. We appreciate you, Marques, and best of luck to you in everything you're doing.
Thank you, Erik. I really appreciate it, my friend.